really great. You and Ron and everyone did a really great job. All right, here we go. We're live now. Thank you all for being here. This is a regular meeting of the West Virginia Rules and Bylaws Committee. Today is November the 14th, 2023. And I will call this meeting to order, and I'm going to do roll call. Bob Baker.
Here.
Dottie Berger. You're muted. I see him on there. All right, Matt Halterman. I don't see him on here, and I did communicate. I sent him a message earlier and was not able to reach him. Go ahead, Dottie.
I'm here.
Oh, great. Deb McCarthy.
I'm here.
Maria Russo.
Here.
Judy Stevens. She may have a medical issue with a family member and might not. She'll try to join, but she thought she might not be able to. Selena Vickers here. Ray Whiting. Oh, here's Matt coming in. Okay.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll go back to Matt because I see him coming in. Matt Halterman. We're on a roll call. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. It's good to see you. All right. So I'm going to move pretty quickly to approval of the agenda. Hopefully you see that on your screen. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Please say nay. Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. All right, now we'll move on to the minutes. These were sent out. These are the minutes of our last meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I don't know if I can move that since I took minutes.
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
I'm trying to remember if I was actually present for that meeting because I was at the beach that week. And I may have gotten on at the beach, but I can't remember. I'm listed as being on.
I think that you were because I went to the YouTube link and I'm pretty sure I saw your face on that.
Okay.
I'm sorry I missed this. Who moved that finally?
Maria Russo.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've got you on here seconding motions and all kinds of stuff, Bob.
Okay. Then I was there for sure.
Okay. All right. So would you be willing to second that motion to accept these?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please indicate by saying nay. All right, so the minutes are, as presented, are approved. So back to our agenda. And again, some people have to leave early, so we're going to jump right into this. This is, again, one of the things that has come up that both formally in this meeting and informally with Democrats are what can we do about party flippers? Mike knew that we were discussing this. He asked if he could sit in on this, and there's no, I heard no objection to that when I asked earlier, and so we welcome Mike Pushkin, chair of the party, to this meeting. Thank you for being with us, and look forward to hearing. So I'm just really gonna we don't have to make any decisions tonight. We're just going to open this up for discussion about what can we do. What are our options in terms of party flippers, and keep in mind, we're the Rules and Bylaws Committee. Just because, the answer might not be in rules and bylaws. It might be something else, but we want to see what else here. I do want to say that I think that you all would be interested to know that when I was at the DNC meeting last month, it was in St. Louis, and the chair of the DNC, Jamie Harrison, asked the Rules and Bylaws Committee of the DNC to form a special committee to examine what options, to look into what kind of options they had for party flippers. And so, they'll have, top lawyers looking at all of the things that they can do. But it was really obvious. And this had a lot to do with a legislative seat in North Carolina, which, because a Democrat flipped to Republican in a very Democratic, region, district, gave, and they have a Democratic government, it gave their Republican supermajority a veto proof. Like they gave them enough by adding her that they then become they could override any veto of the Democratic governor. And so it was a real sting to the Democrats. So we do have, I don't know when that decision will be made, but we can look forward to learning a little bit about what they do. So I'm just going to open this up for discussion. I know Ray has to leave early. And actually, can I just do that? Can I call on you, Ray? Because I know that you have some thoughts on this issue.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I've been chewing on this for quite some time, and it seems to me that it seems like we're funding the Republican Party, bottom line. And the thing is, for some odd reason, they want to get into politics, and they come in as a Democrat, and we are spending money on their campaign to get them in the door. And for some odd reason, I guess the other party, wave a magic wand or some hocus pocus or whatever, and thus they eventually turn to a Republican. And I believe that I wish that we could do something. There's some sort of penalty for doing that. Now, monetary wise, I don't know how much is spent on their campaign, and I'm thinking maybe if they were to come up with a certain amount of money, say $5,000 or maybe like $2,000, they have to raise that, and then maybe the party would, the Democrat Party would help them with their campaign funds. So it's kind of like holding their money as collateral for as long as if they get elected, for as long as they stay in office and they stay within the party. And of course, if they choose to turn Republican, then we keep that money. Because again, as of right now, I know that again, it seems like it's a big wave of getting into politics, getting the door by the way of the Democrat Party. Once you're in, then you switch to Republican, which just doesn't make any sense at all. Maybe one other idea, and maybe this may have to go through legal general counsel. Maybe they sign something like a promissory note to say, okay, if you choose to switch parties, that part of that salary as a state legislature, part of that salary comes back to the Democrat Party as a form of repayment to us for helping them get into office. Those are my ideas right there. But again, I just want to share that with you all. Again, I know it's just kind of early and kind of premature, but just to put it out there for discussion. The floor is open. Yes, sir.
I haven't thought about it very much, but one thing that I think is true is that as a party, we haven't been giving anything to candidates anyway, other than free access to the van and a few other perks like that. I think there's not very much that we can do to somebody who switches parties. Although we could have them, if they were going to accept use of the van, they could sign a contract that they would repay us for that use if they switched parties. Or if we gave them money as a party, not as opposed to individuals, that they would have to repay that money if they switched parties. We could probably do contracts like that. I don't know about penalties or anything else, whether those would be legal. This isn't my area of expertise to the extent that I have one anymore. I've been retired for 13 years. So, but
Bob,
election law is it wasn't something I ever did.
and I see what you're saying, Bob, but my thing is, there has to be something, because again, this is, this is hurting the state overall. The bottom line is hurting the state. And I don't think that someone, and my guess is someone who is going to run as a true Republican, it's kind of hard to get in the door in their respective counties when you have folks that's already been in there, 3, 4, and 5 terms.
Yeah.
You see. So what better way to get your foot in the door? Come through the Democrat Party.
Well, I don't know what we would normally charge somebody to use the van that would be entitled to use it, but I would think that and I assume everybody knows what the van is. I barely know, but it's a list of registered Democrats and maybe other people too, with information about how they voted in the past and so on, when they voted. But if we would normally charge a fee for that, I think that would be something that we could ask to, in giving permission to use the van, I think we could get that back. Other than that, it's really hard to have any leverage over those people, is the way I see it. I'd be interested to see what the National Party comes up with, because there may be some other way of making it painful for them that's legal, but I'm not sure what it would be. I don't think we could have them sign a contract to give back a certain amount of money, but that's also a possibility. I just don't have a clear sense of whether that's legal or not.
Mac, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
This is an issue that I was really passionate on before the elections. Even in 2020, but then 22, that brought us all here. I think what we're discussing is how much leverage do we have? How can we organize a contractual basis? But the question is this gets back to the core issue of this committee, is what type of party do we want? Right now, yes, we offer van. We don't offer very many services to candidates that we could leverage on a contractual basis. I think the root of this issue is we have created such a cult of personality around our candidates in West Virginia that most people don't view the party. And so we have to reorganize the party in a way that gives them services that they need. Something like treasurer programs, connecting them with treasurers, connecting them with Get Out the Vote, not just van. That way, we could empower the executive director because they already sign a contract of confidentiality and use when they do van. They have to sign a contract saying they're not going to take those records elsewhere. They have to sign into confidentiality and they pay a fee. Part of that contract for entering into the other services, the expanded services that we would provide as an active party, would be that they are monetarily liable for the cumulative services that we provide. That way, you wouldn't just have a $300 fine. And what you would do is you would have that contract go on every time they're reelected, and it stacks. So it's much painful for a senator or a member of the House who has been elected and reelected multiple times to switch parties because they have multiple cycles of tied services to the party. We already have the executive director empowered to make these contracts. The thing that we have to figure out, I think, is how do we provide more service to our candidates as a party that they can leverage, that we can then counter leverage in a contractual basis to make them more tied to us, to make it more painful for them to separate. Because I do not see a rules and bylaws answer to this as far as how we could punish. It's very difficult because we are tied by our mother organization, our founding charter organization, the National Party, that we have to provide support to our Democratic candidates. We can't just outright be hostile to them. So we have to find ways to monetize, provide better support, put a monetary value on that support, and then contractualize it to where that if they use the leverage that we have given them to flip parties, they are monetarily liable for that. And that would stand up in court. There's been cases like that, but they're all over a century old. So that's my 2 cents on it, is there's no way to tackle this problem head on. It's going to be us creating an active party that provides services, connections with a treasurer's program, connections with get out the vote, trainings, and putting a monetary value on those assets that can be tracked over time that they sign into as part of getting access to the van and other things. We could totally do that. And that's kind of the party that over the last 2 years, I've heard us all say we want. Is a more active party that's there every week, not just on election years. And I think we can do that. And I think this just ties back into that goal. So I yield the floor for anyone who has any other ideas.
Thank you, Mac. Dottie, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but whatever it is, I get the feeling that an answer isn't a monetary fine. There's got to be something else that we can hit these faithless electors, I guess, for want of a better word, with that this incentivizes them from leaving, because just establishing a fine for a party that's as well off as the Republicans are, I don't think that that's a solution. But there's got to be something else that would disincentivize them, but I don't know what it is. And I leave it to my elders and betters to figure out what.
Deb, you have your hand up.
Isn't campaign fundraising when you're in one party and using that money to win and then flipping months after? Isn't that bait and switch? Are there bait and switch laws here? Can we apply those to campaigning? I don't know. Is that a wild idea? But it seems to me like a bait and switch. And coming from a voter perspective, I feel betrayed and a victim of bait and switch. So I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm throwing it out there.
Thank you. And
I
I
like
have
that.
Yeah, and I have a question now. I know Mike has to go in a little bit, and I want to make sure Mike has can tell us his perspective. But for me, the question is: do we want a bad Democrat who is going to vote with Republicans on bad issues? I'm not talking about like reasonable bipartisanship. I'm just talking about like bad stuff. Do we really want somebody who wants to flip to not flip because they might have to pay a fine, for lack of a better word, or something like that? Because I don't know I've said this before, I was so incredibly relieved when Elliot Pritt flipped, because I knew he was going to flip, and he was already voting in a way that, I was getting calls from people saying, Selena, you asked me to vote for this guy. Like, this is not what I voted for, And so anyway, so that's sort of like a big question. Mac, if it's okay, I want to go to Mike, just because he hadn't had a chance, and I think he might have to go. But go ahead, Mike.
I'm gonna stick around as long as I can.
Okay.
I mean, you brought up Elliot. Of course, yeah. If I lived there, I wouldn't regret voting for him in a two-way race. There was no primary. Nobody ran against him in the primary. We had a hard time finding candidates to run in that district, in a district that obviously Democrats could win because he won as a Democrat. He flipped because he didn't feel like he could get reelected as a Democrat. And that's why people are flipping. It's because of opportunism. And they're winning as Democrats, but they're feeling they can't. It's all about opportunism for them. It's all, if they think that they could win, then they're going to choose the path of least resistance. I don't think this is, I'll be interested to see what the DNC has to say about this. I don't think this is a rules and bylaws question. That's my opinion. I don't think there's any way to penalize somebody for political ideology in America. Sorry, I think, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I think there's probably some real constitutional issues with that. In West Virginia, uh, political parties, I believe, are a protected class, so you can't be fired or evicted or refuse service because of your political ideology or your political party. Um, Now, of course, unfortunately, in West Virginia, you can be fired or evicted because of your gender identity or sexual orientation, unfortunately. But political parties is protected, I understand. Um, but how I feel about it is really similar to Selena. Wow, it upsets me, especially when it really makes a difference. There was the case of Senator Hall, and the Senate was tied. 17-17, and they offered him something and he flipped, and that's what flipped the Senate back in 2015 is when he flipped. And that's what happened in North Carolina recently. They offered a House rep something, and she flipped, and that caused them to lose. That created a supermajority in North Carolina. So sometimes there are real consequences to it, and even then, I don't know what kind of penalty or punishment can be dealt out, except that in many cases, they don't win the primary because they don't stand for anything. And personally, I think about the party that you want. I want a party where we stand for something. We're Democrats for a reason. I can't change parties because I have core beliefs that I can't change. So I think what we're left with are people who share our core beliefs, and they're not going to change. And I honestly, I think as painful as it is right now, I think we're getting rid of some excess baggage that we didn't need to begin with, and we're going to have a much stronger party. And then you'll probably see people switching back because they're opportunists, and once they think it's easier to get elected as a Democrat, they're going to run as a Democrat. For a long time, it's when we were the party that had the majority and everything and held every public office, there were a lot of people who had the D after their name because that was the only way to get elected. Now they want an R after their name because that's the best way. They feel that's the easiest way to get elected. So they're more concerned about getting elected than they are about how they do their job. We can't change that. You can't change opportunists. They're always going to be like that. They're always going to seek the path of least resistance. But what we can do is build a party that wins and elects better people. And that's the only. And as far as money that was spent, I think that's more of an issue for the people that are donating money to the campaign. And whether it's whatever organization is, whether it's a PAC or individuals that give money to that campaign. It isn't the role of the state party to fund campaigns. We don't do that. We provide training, we provide access to data, which the campaigns do pay for, depending on the size of the race. How much, what the fee is. I mean, for a House of Delegates race, it's really not a whole lot, but for a statewide race, it's more. We provide the data, we provide the training, but we're not necessarily funding these campaigns. Now, do we do things that benefit these candidates? Of course we do. That's if it wasn't for work that was done behind the scenes, Elliot Pritt never would have won that election, and he knows that. Selena knows that. Selena did a lot of work down in Fayette County. We did a lot of work to help him be the one Democrat that flipped a seat in 22, and he knew that. He didn't have the decency to call us and tell us what he was thinking. We knew what he was thinking. He was picking fights with progressives on Twitter because he wanted to give himself an excuse for what he knew he was about to do. And we didn't take the bait. People were saying, you need to do something about Elliot Pritt. You need to do something. I knew what he was getting ready to do. I didn't want to give him another excuse. Is that if I would have, he wanted us to put out a statement against him. He was calling me, if you got a lot of pressure to put out a statement against me, go ahead and do it. I was like, no, Elliot, I know what you're going to do. You're going to use that statement as an excuse when you already know what you're going to do, just because you're an opportunist. You don't stand for anything, and you never did. The guy switched parties 10 times
10
in his life, and
times.
he's what?
He's
He's in
33
his
years
early
old.
30s. How old is he?
He's like 30, he's probably 34 now.
But yeah, he's in his early 30s. He has switched parties 10 times. We can't prevent that. Unfortunately, that's what we were able to recruit. So I think the issue is in candidate recruitment, the issue is in candidate training, and the issue is getting out there and volunteering for these candidates and electing, creating a culture where Democrats are winning again for the right reasons. And we will have better Democrats in office than we did before. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mike. Mac?
I agree with everything Mike said. I think this is us trimming fat and getting people who are core held beliefs. But I have a little bit different opinion in that I don't think there can't be a monetary element, but I don't think the monetary element is the big thing. BB was right. There has to be more than a fine to this. And that's why I said we have to make the party so much more involved in campaigns. We have to offer more services, and we have to figure out how to quantify them, because those opportunists are looking for the easiest way to win. We have to revolutionize our ground game. We have to offer services that aren't being offered anywhere else. I still think we should do a unified treasurer program where I had tons of campaigns in the 10 years I was working across the country who were like, I would run, but I don't know who knows the laws of elections enough to be my treasurer. Just a handful of people who could be treasurers that could charge a small fee. The party connects them. We keep them on retainer. Helps us with recruiting, because it gets one of the most scary aspects for most people out of the way, which is, how do I handle the money? I think we could figure out how to quantify and offer more services for our ground game. I think we could offer more social media, text banking, phone banking services in-house instead of contracting them out. And I think that gives us a monetary aspect to do perhaps make them responsible for those funds, is the right wording for the lawyers out there, that if they were to switch, they would be responsible for paying us back for that service. But at the same time, on the opportunistic argument, if we are being a more active party and we're having a better ground game, we're having a better social media presence, we're offering more services than the Republicans, those opportunists aren't going to flip in the first place, because we're going to be the party that's winning. And all that starts with fundraising. So Mike's been right on that. We have to revolutionize how we fundraise and take it one step at a time. But I think it doesn't have to be there can't be a monetary element. I think it's a combination of both. We have to have a monetary responsibility penalty that we put this time and effort into you, we fostered you, but we also need to just be more active. I think that is a holistic solution to the problem. And there are elements in that this committee could play a role in. We could create standing committees. We're been trying to work on one that do things like outreach, train for get out the vote, things like that, create those. I would like to see our elected members within the party, not the party officials, but the us who got elected over in 22. I would like to see us work more. And I know that's hard. I was having this conversation with Nikki a few days ago in that we aren't paid positions. And that, as a party that claims to represent workers, that's very difficult because it's hard for us young people. I'm working 4 jobs right now. I just accepted my 4th position. I haven't been involved as I want to be. I would like to give more time and expertise. And whenever you're not getting paid, it's hard for people to work. And it incentivizes groups of people who have the time and the excess money or don't need as much money to be a part of this steering process that the executive committee does. And then, of course, those people are going to bring their expertise. Oh, we like meeting at X location. Well, of course you do. And then you're like, why am I not connecting with a certain demographic? It's because you're meeting at what's comfortable for you and you're not going out. So there are things we can do to be a more active party that I think could solve this. I think it's going to take an attack from multiple directions. I don't think we as the bylaws committee have the power to impose a fine or penalty, but I think we can create services that could be monetized that could get us there, but also stave off the opportunists by making us a better party anyway. That's my total thoughts. That's where I'm going to stand back.
Thank you, Mac. Deb?
I'm not sure the issue is more services. I think the issue is more candidates. We need more choice. How did we get in the Elliott pickle? Because we didn't have a choice. So I think we need to work harder at recruiting more candidates who can differentiate. Elliott, we knew Elliott was not on the left. We knew he was somewhere else, but yet there he was running with us. Where was the candidate who was kind of more on the left, who would actually abide by and embrace the democratic ideologies that we all love and promote? It wasn't Elliott. So I think we need to back up a step and recruit more candidates to give us more choice. They're right at the onset. We will have a choice between somebody who might be riding the fence and flipping on the other side to somebody who's going to stick with us and promote what we believe in. That's where I think the issue is.
Thank you, Deb. Maria, I think everybody's kind of talked extensively. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have a thought on this or that you want to share. But if you do, that would be a great time.
Yeah, thanks, Selena. I'm soaking a lot of this in. I feel I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been shared. I feel like the issue at hand is much larger, even than a rules and bylaws issue, and that even than kind of what we're offering them issue. That might be a piece of it, but I don't think people are switching parties because of what we are or aren't offering. I think there are so many more complex reasons, and I'm trying to kind of think to myself what those are. I do agree with Deb that we need better candidates, but it's also a really intimidating situation to try to step into as a potential candidate. And I think that's why we're having trouble recruiting people. So there's like a multi-pronged issue that we're kind of trying to address. And I think it's very important that we ask these questions as a party, especially with how much this is happening. I mean, there's even like a narrative now where, you know, I have some friends who are running for office as Democrats, like proudly and bravely and standing true to their values as they announce some of their campaigns, and people kind of just like scoff at them. And they're like, you know, you why wouldn't you run as a Republican? And they're like, because I don't believe in that party's values. But like, that's the dominant narrative right now. And I think like as a collective, we need to think about why that's a dominant narrative, how we like push back on that, and like the larger issue at hand. So yes, this is a very big beast that we're attacking right now. And I do want to understand what our role, just because we're in a rules and bylaws meeting, I'm curious about like what our role as a group who's continued to meet even in like the off times of the executive committee, like what our role is and what we can do to support this effort that is a much larger issue just beyond like what we've been charged to do.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I mean, I think that if there are legal things, I mean, we could definitely, I think we have it within our ability to propose, bylaws that could affect this, if we knew a legal path to do it, and more importantly, if we wanted to. I think we have the authority to do that. I think the big questions are: what legally could we do? And two, if there are things that we could legally do, is that really what we want to do? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it does. I see Bob has his hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was just thinking that we could have aspirational language in the bylaws about being loyal to the party that would not be enforceable in any way. And I think that's probably a good idea, that somebody who runs should be loyal to the party, at least during the term of office that they're elected for. And then if I think it would be up to Mike and Ryan to put together something that's contractual. I don't think that's something that should be in the bylaws at all. I think I agree with Mac pretty much on that and what he's been saying. But I think there could be something that's aspirational in the bylaws, that not enforceable, but puts people on notice of what's expected of them.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you. I would agree with a lot of what has been said. And I think to me, just the answer really like what Deb said in candidate recruitment, and without candidates, there really isn't even. We're not going to elect anybody. So the point is getting candidates on the ballot, having choices, giving Democratic voters choices, and having candidates that lead with their values. And that's hard to scoff at. Why are you running as a Democrat? Well, I'd love somebody to ask me why I'm running as a Democrat, because I'll tell them in a heartbeat. Because I think people should have access to health care. I think people should get paid a decent wage, a living wage. I think that they should get protected on the job. I think they should have decent roads to drive on, good schools to sit there. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I'm running as a Democrat. Please ask me. And because I don't just support protecting the wealth of the wealthiest 1% of West Virginians, and that's why only reason why anybody would be running as a Republican. If they tell you any different, they're not telling you the truth. So we need Democrats who lead with their values when they run. I don't like the idea of any kind of loyalty oath. That's not, to me, that's not a political party. That's becoming more what the other side is, and they're becoming a cult. I just look at what's happening in other states right now. And I know that nothing is static in politics, and it might be hard times for us right now. And the people who never stood for anything, they're going to, like I said, they're going to take the path of least resistance. They can, don't let the door hit you in the ass. We're going to keep building this party here, and we do, what it's worth. We put out pretty strong statements when somebody does this, and it's not going to help them in their primary endeavors. I think you'll see in cases where people are doing this in very red districts, they don't usually win primaries after that. When they're doing it to go after a Democrat, or in a case where they were flipping a seat from a seat that was been blue for a long time to red, then they don't have a primary challenge. That's usually where some sort of deal was made with leadership. And I think there are less and less opportunities like that for the Republicans. Now it seems it's just pure opportunism from folks in districts they feel that they can't win now as a Democrat, unfortunately. I think that voters of all kinds can see right through that, and they're not going to be successful. And if their only goal is to further their own career, they're not going to be happy, because it's not going to work out in the long run. People can see through phoniness on both sides of the aisle. So,
Thank you, Mike.
yeah.
Deb?
Do candidates sign any kind of agreement with the party when they file to run? Is there anything, because I did file to run once, but I don't remember what I signed. So no,
you sign to get data, you sign a voter file agreement. Now that means that data can only be used to help your campaign. And if it's not for a campaign, say it's for somebody that works like a political consultant that's buying access, say they can only use that for Democratic candidates, or they can't use this against any Democratic candidates. There's those types of agreements. There's standard agreements that we get from Vote Builder, but no, we don't have people sign loyalty oaths. That's something that I don't think I don't personally believe in that. When I won my election, I took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution.
Yeah. I want to be clear. I wasn't suggesting loyalty oaths, but just aspirational language about loyalty to the party.
That's something I would agree. I think aspirational language about loyalty to the party is great. We also have a party platform that we're supposed, and that's something that's coming up this summer when we have our state convention, is we get to review our party platform plank by plank and decide what we want to change and what we want to keep.
So maybe the issue is not about loyalty to the party. Maybe it's about upholding our ideology, what we stand for, and how you behave as a candidate. It's about behavior and ideology, and not loyalty. You see the difference? There's a differentiation there, where you're not pledging loyalty to us. You're pledging to behave in a certain manner, and if you don't, we're going to have a word with you.
Well, I'm going to call on Mac because I know he has some thoughts on this. Go ahead, Mac.
Well, I've been kind of sitting back listening to this loyalty conversation, and you see, it's weird because I am not a center left person. I describe myself as a leftist libertarian. I believe in a small, restrained government that is powerful, and it's powerful for the voice of the people. So whenever you talk about not loyalty, but maybe through behavior and actions, it's hard, because how do you personify loyalty? It's through behavior and actions. I don't believe we should do any kind of explicit loyalty oath, but what I would like to see is a public agreement between a candidate who is running on our ballot line, where they sign off and agree publicly with so much of our platform. And it needs to be a low number, but it needs to be enough that, and this would help party leadership, of course, in that they need to sign off on so much of the party platform. And then if we were to get a majority, which I hope we would, then leadership can go through and say, hey, this is the area where we all agree. This is where I want to immediately put our policy focus on whenever we come into session. And I agree with Mike that it's a recruitment issue. I do. I think that the recruitment issue is important. And I think that's something we've always struggled with because I don't think we offer enough help to candidates. That's why I kept coming back to the services side of it. And a big part of that, I think, is, and this is just years of working alongside the party, outside of it, there is a perception that Democrats only come around in election years. I would like to see maybe rules and bylaws establish standing committees and maybe mandate that the counties establish standing committees that are charged with making constant contact throughout the year with a certain percentage of every type of voter. In maybe even face-to-face canvassing. That might be very aspirational, but the idea is if you can purple some of these red districts, and if you can make first contact with people who aren't voting, and you can do it altruistically, that is to say that we're doing it in a year where we have nothing to gain, like an election, we come across as much more genuine. And we stand, it shows that we're standing for our values even when we have nothing to gain. And I think that wins people over. Like Mike said, people can see through a phony messaging. West Virginians are good for that. And I think that, generally speaking, and I think that making contact in off years, doing a standing committee that is just charged with making voter contact, 4 canvasses a year. One canvas, you're touching base with Democrats. One canvas, we're drawing a list off the SOS and we're hitting independents. Even a quarter where we hit Republicans. See if maybe we can adapt our messaging. See if we can get some information on, hey, they don't have a problem with having medical care and believe everyone should have medical care. They have a problem with this aspect of it. Hey, maybe we can address that. Maybe we can do some policy think tank on that. I think that's valuable. And I think that, again, offering services helps you recruit candidates because, hey, we're going to help you. The scariest part for anyone is getting in the race. That's why I came back to the Treasury program. A lot of people don't know how to handle the money to the rules of the state and the federal government. Having treasurers on hand who work with that all the time, being able to provide that service, that strengthens us as a party. That helps us recruit. Going out and hitting voters and purpling up or bluing up districts, that helps us win races. And it helps us build our base. I think it's services. I really, truly do. I think that's the heart of it. I yield.
Thank you. All right. So I think what I heard a lot in here is strategy and about how to get past this issue, that maybe this is not a thing that the rules and bylaws can do, but it is it's a big picture issue that there's a lot of ways to come at it, and there are a lot of ideas about strategy about how to come get it. And that is not our job. Is rules and bylaws is not our job. Our job is to build the rules and infrastructure that would, say, give county committees the opportunity to build a committee that or the state party opportunity to build some of the committees that Mac and was talking about, and that sort of thing. So I think making sure that our laws the bylaws that we put into place provide for that infrastructure for the state party and for the counties to do these things. As we're going through this work, let's keep that in mind. The other thing that I wanted to say is that, for instance, it might not be anything in the bylaws that would, punish a person. But like I know that I really like some of the press releases that came out of headquarters about Elliot. But just basically calling out a lot of the duplicity. He made some kind of statement in the news about how he's treated better and people are responding to him better since he's a Republican trying to make himself feel better. And boy, there was a press release that came out really fast that hit him. It's like, hey, if you're talking to administration and you're not getting answers, you're required to report that. Please let us know when you reported this. And of course he didn't. So there are ways that that people can get hit back. Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I would say that one got a really delayed response to it. We got there was a statewide story on West Virginia Watch just last week. We put the press release out after, because he said that a while ago about how he was now people were calling him back now that he was a Republican. So we're like, oh, you need to report that, because that goes against the law for them to not give you services because of your political party. One thing I will say that real quick, I'm interested in seeing what the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee has to say about this. They're going to have people look into the constitutionality of it, obviously. So I'm interested in seeing what they decide. If there is any sort of rules and bylaws solution to this, I think that we could get guidance from them on it. And then one other thing, I agree wholeheartedly with the increased candidate trainings. In 22, we did increase candidate trainings a lot, and we plan on increasing that even more once we get the candidates. And I like the idea of having treasurer trainings as well, because it is something that people don't realize really how simple it actually is, and it's something that might scare people, but it's not that difficult even to act as your own treasurer. But we could, but it's a good idea to train. We've done this before too, training the staff around the candidate, and making it a little bit less scary for people by saying, look, we're going to help you every step of the way, which we plan on doing. As somebody who's been a candidate many times, when I ran for chair, it's one thing I really wanted to change was definitely more help for the candidates. We did that in 22. We've had more time since then, and we plan on doing more of that in 24. But right now, we got to get the candidates to train. So,
yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
well, thank you all for this conversation. And I will, as I learn more about what the DNC does with that, I'll make sure that I communicate that with you all. So if there's nothing else on that particular issue, and we're at an hour, so we're just going to do a couple quick updates before we adjourn. One of the things I wanted to update you guys on is proxy voting. So as you guys may remember, we submitted our first tranche of bylaw amendments to the State Executive Committee for approval for their May 13th meeting. And we were doing some education on that during one of our education meetings, which was just like a couple days before that meeting. Somebody contacted Bob and said, hey, there's this ruling from Judge Tabbitt that affected one of the things that we had in there, which was basically if you remove a member, you have to have a process. You have to have due process. And so we needed to relook at that and that section and make sure we had and so we pulled that section. Everything else was approved and we pulled that section. That section basically was the attendance policy that we had approved. And also, as part of our attendance, we addressed proxies, because we thought if we're going to, basically tell somebody, you cannot miss more than 3 in a row, or I think 5 total, or something like that. We need to make sure we have a lenient proxy process so that you can have somebody. We decided to give the proxy. Instead of it being individualized for different types of groups, like a Senate district person only being able to get other people from their Senate district, and officers can pick from statewide, and only affirmative action committee people can pick like somebody from their diversity. Instead of that being like really complicated, we just decided They, if you are on the state executive committee, you can have a proxy from anywhere in the state as long as they're a Democrat. You can pick somebody that you think is going to go and represent you the best throughout the state. And I think that was unanimous decision. We all felt very, very good about that. But because of that, we also said there currently was no limit on the number of proxies, and we were going to limit that to one. I think only one person opposed that. So anyway, that was our proposal. But we pulled that from consideration at the May meeting, and so that part did not pass. We did a little tweaking on the due process stuff, which the next time that we present to the state executive committee, we will have that to share. So, but I wanted to update you all. I don't know. I think some of you may have missed the meeting that we had on September 30th. But during that meeting, it was the first in-person meeting since COVID. We had had some hybrid meetings, but we had not had any fully just in-person meeting. There was a 30-day notice about that it was an in-person meeting, but some people could not attend, and so they assigned proxies. There were 11 people that assigned proxies, that those proxies went to more than one person. So for example, the biggest example was Troy Miller, which is from Senate District 16. He was assigned 4 proxies. Every single member of the elected members from Senate District 14, the only person that that was going to that meeting that could have represented them was Troy Miller, because it had to be somebody from their Senate district. So that was Mac and Maria and Cheryl Lawrence, and I can't remember the other guy's name up there.
Ken.
Ken Miller.
Yeah, Ken Collison. Yeah. So those 4 members. So think about that. Like, if he had not been able to go to that meeting, that all Democrats that had, they would not have representation from that district at all, right? So I think that in and of itself should give us comfort in what we're deciding and letting have state, let a Democrat pick anybody in the state, right? So he had 4, and then there were, I think I had 3, and then there were a couple other people who had 2. And so there was a point of order at sort of the beginning of the meeting after roll call, basically saying that there should only be one proxy per person, and the reasoning for that is the DNC rules and bylaws say that DNC members for their meetings can only have it, and it does in the bylaws say that, but it also is very specific to DNC. It doesn't say all committees and that sort of thing. So now all of that, I'm sure, is open to interpretation. But I did, because it is I've gotten communication from people. I know that Mike has got communication from people. I even received a draft set of rules and bylaws, somebody doing our job for us, asking us to make it one proxy per person, which we have already done that. We're already got that drafted, and so. But I just wanted, because that I did receive that, because it is an issue that we are addressing. People may contact you all. I felt that you all should know that exists, and actually somebody has filed a challenge about that, which that is up to the Board of Appeals to address that. But I did want to make you all aware and give you an update on that proxy issue. I feel really, really good about the direction that we have taken, and I feel pretty confident that the state executive committee, when it gets to them, I think it'll be a very good response. But I keep in mind that our current bylaws do not provide a limit, don't require a limit. The rights are given, the bylaws give the rights to the membership to assign their proxy. They have limits on it and who that they can assign, but it does not say, oh, well, there's only one person in Senate District 16 that can go to this meeting. Only one of you all gets to assign them. Screw, the other three and your constituents. So there's no limit on that. So I just wanted to update you on that. The other thing that I wanted to update you on is there was some concern that there were members that could not attend and that there was not a virtual option to that meeting. Like I said, this was the first in-person meeting. And so there have been, requests about having hybrid meetings. As it stands right now, the bylaws say that we have 2 in-person meetings and two other meetings, like a telecom. It used to be teleconference, now virtual or whatever. So basically 4 a year. So I think that we definitely, as we move forward in our work, we want to address that, and definitely there are a lot of issues related to hybrid meetings and the rights of members and that sort of thing that I think that we should consider and debate and look at it for every which angle and just do the very best that we can to make sure that we're just doing the very best that we can. So I just wanted to update you on those 2 things before we adjourn and as we move forward in our work. Maria, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted a really quick refresher as far as the proxy language goes. So I know we have worked on that. We had worked on that for a while, but we haven't revisited it in a couple months just because of various meetings and other topics that came up. So is that language of what we have suggested for the proxies, is that complete? And is that just like waiting to be delivered to the executive committee, or do we still have more work to do on that to kind of solidify it as a group? And then I have one more question, but I want to ask the answer or get the answer to that one first.
Without pulling that up and looking at it, I believe it's my understanding that that was done and it would have already been approved if we hadn't pulled it. The only change in that we have made is related to making sure that there is due process. So as far as the proxy language, I think, we should probably relook at that. Just to make sure, but it's my understanding, what we did before is probably what will go before them again. But because of this new issue, I think we just have to go back and look at it and just make sure this is what we want. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I definitely had some concerns that came up just around Troy being the only proxy that was able to be available for any of us. So that was a big thing. But one question that I have, this is again not really a rules and bylaws topic, but I'm curious if any other people have thoughts on it. I know that the 30-day notice is kind of the standard and that's what's in the rules and bylaws, but is there ever a situation where like if we can hold a date for the in-person meetings like a little bit further out than that? Just because schedules tend to get a little busy. I don't know, Mike, if you have an answer on that, but just to avoid what happened previously, because I know there was a lot of dialogue around people not, the 30-day notice is great, but it seemed like people had other obstacles that got in the way of them attending, and I was just curious if we were hoping to address that in any other ways.
Well, we
Question for
definitely
me?
can.
I mean, we're required to do at least 30 days if we're voting on if we're electing officers or voting on rules and bylaws, correct? Is there any other? Yeah, that it's in a perfect world, it'd be nice to come up with a date that everybody can agree on. We're never going to be able to do that. With the amount of work that we're doing with the amount of people we have working for us right now, which is just, a few of us here, Corey and Ryan, and it's hard to really to plan it like that. But in the future we'll try to next time we have an in-person meeting, most likely will be in the spring, and we'll try to give more than 30-day. We can do more than the 30-day notice. We're just required to at least 30-day notice. So let people plan for it more. I wish we could find a perfect day that worked for everybody. We're never going to be able to do that. So sometimes it's easier just to, pick the day we can do it and go for it.
Right. Oh, Mike, it might be a good idea to think about setting the schedule for meetings at the start of the year so that people can have them in their calendar and plan around it.
Well, we know that we know when the meeting in the summer is going to be, and I think that's on the calendar because that's going to be the state convention. So we know that's already booked in June. I believe the
From the 15th.
Yeah, 14th. And so the 15th and 16th in Charleston is will be the state convention. We know that. We'll try to we'll try to plan accordingly. And I mean, there's certain things that are happening in an election year that are going to be set in stone, whether it's county conventions, state convention, and those dates will go out as soon as we well, I think we had for the county conventions, it's like the week after the end of session. That's what we're most likely going to be discussing here. We're going to be putting out a 15-day notice soon for a Zoom meeting that will be mostly in early December. We're trying to find a good date for that, and that's mainly what we'll be discussing. Then will be the upcoming county conventions that'll be happening this spring, and then of course candidate recruitment. But I get the point. Yeah, we need to have a set calendar.
Thank you, Marie. Deb, go ahead.
Good question. So does offering Zoom as an option at an in-person meeting preclude the in-person meeting from being an in-person meeting? Can you call it an in-person meeting and still offer a Zoom option so more people have an opportunity to attend?
Well, I think that I think it's just semantics, but that would be what I would call a hybrid meeting as opposed to a fully in-person meeting. And and these are the question that you asked, Deb, are exactly the questions that I think when we dive into this that we'll be answering, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of it, because obviously there's a level of convenience to it, but there's a lot of, and let me just be very, very clear. I'm not saying in any way that that anybody is manipulating the Zoom to violate people's rights. But I literally have been in Zoom meetings where members' rights are violated because somebody has controls. We're all informal here, but in a meeting where you want to make a point of order or something like that, or make a motion, and you're muted. Like you can Corey has the ability to go in and mute all of us right now, and we can't get in. And so it is a big issue. Thank you for the
That's
demonstration. And if that is a very important vote.
Did you like that?
I did. But if that
Glad
is
you're paying attention, Corey.
if that is a very important vote, and the vote is going down and you can't get in, you see what I'm saying? That is a huge issue in terms of rights of members, and that's why in-person meetings are so there's substitute for in-person meetings when it comes to rights. And so but if you can't get to a meeting, you're also. So I think all of that is things that we have to really look at, and we debate. And I want to be really, really clear that I know we're all passionate about this, but our job is to protect the rights of Democrats and build the party. Like that is our job. And I think that we have to keep that at the forefront. So we don't have to come up with the answers right now, but I think we have to have just like we had a nice long debate about this. And I think we're, for the most part, have some consistent, I mean, I'm not going to say we have consensus, but it's sort of moving in that direction. I think that we can do the same thing on that. But I think it's really, really important to have that discussion. So anyway, I just wanted to update you on both of those things, and what it's obviously important for the state executive committee membership that we work on, and so we work on that moving forward. And so I know that Mike wants us to have our next tranche of amendments ready to go in the spring. So he'll be letting me know, when the spring meeting will be, and we'll have that ready so that we'll have our 30-day notice that'll go out. And I think we should also, at that time we'll do education again and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's all that I have this evening. Does anybody else have anything before we adjourn? Bob, you're
Bob, you
muted.
need to unmute.
Corey muted you.
Sorry, Bob.
That's fine, Corey. I deserve to be muted. I have this old computer that finally was connecting, and that's what the feedback was. What I was gonna, we're meeting the second Tuesday in December. Then is our next meeting.
Okay, I'm so glad that you brought this up. Hold on.
I was just going to say the same thing, because on the calendar on the website, it's currently for the 14th, which is a Thursday.
Okay, we'll have
Right.
to change that.
We were changing from Thursday at our last meeting, but we didn't. I'm not sure what date we suggested, but it seems to me the second Tuesday makes sense because, particularly in the next couple of months, and the next month, the third will be close to December, close to Christmas.
Yeah, we did say the second Tuesday, and we also said the fourth Tuesday if we wanted to use it. But I'm actually going to be I can't meet the fourth Tuesday. I can meet the second Tuesday, so let's definitely say right now the next meeting is going to be December the 12th, and then if we wanted to meet the fourth Tuesday, we can, but that's the day after Christmas. And I imagine we all are going to have like family and stuff. So I would say not that. But maybe when we start back in January, you can look and see if we want to start meeting both, the second and fourth in January. But we can talk about that in December. Is that okay? All right.
Yes.
So next meeting is December 12th at 6:30.
And the reason I brought up the calendar, don't these meetings require 30 days notice as well?
No, these only require 14-day notice.
Okay, perfect.
The only things that require 30-day notice is when there are elections and when we are, actually voting on change. The state executive committee is voting on changing bylaws, or a county committee is voting on changing bylaws. But our committee work, that is not required. Okay, so just 14-day notice. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right, Mike, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I thought your particular unique perspective was very, very helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Mac, we've missed you. We're so glad that you're able to join us. And Corey, thank you so much for helping us out with all of our background stuff, and for your really, really well-timed demonstration. All right. So thank you all so much. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.